Welcome back for lightning round. Let's get right to it.
All right, so Ash, is AOL a good candidate for private equity?
Only if the private equity firm has amnesia and forgets the massive amount of wealth destroyed in the... No, I'm not saying this to be rude to AOL. I think it made sense, but I think that a lot of the guys who were going to make the decision remember the Time Warner deal where they lost so much value. I think it would have made more sense when AOL was spun off from Time Warner like 2 or 3 years ago or whatever. I think right now you've seen 40+% evaporation of wealth. Financially, it makes sense. I think there's just too many people in the decision-making process that feel like this is a falling knife, we're going to get cut, what's the point?
Fair enough.
My turn to ask you a question. So there was a recent study in Forbes that said that heavy social media users on Facebook in particular are actually less social in real life. Are you shocked?
No, I'm not shocked at all, and I'm going to sound a little bit cynical here, but intuitively it kind of makes sense. A heavy social media user is someone who's constantly wired in. They're a little bit of a geek, and the stereotype of a geek kind of stipulates that you have no life offline. In a similar vein, I've been to a lot of conferences, and you get all these people in a room, and they're so excited to be in a room with each other because
where are we going with this?
Well, this is before they have too much to drink. And they tweet with each other and they Facebook each other all year long. They finally get in a room, and what do? They pull out their phones and they tweet about how they're in a room with everyone, but no one's actually having a conversation. So no, it doesn't surprise me at all that heavy social media users are a little bit reclusive and almost have this duplicitous personality between online and offline.
Nothing to add to that.
Okay, now for you. Ashton Kutcher recently wrote about some technology. He didn't disclose which ones he invested in. How much disclosure is enough? How much is too much?
Okay, I think you should always be safe and disclose what you think should be disclosed, but I'm going to take a different angle with the answer. I think the bigger issue is when you're on the internet, basically everything is a Google search away. So if you're reading this and you're like, wait a second, is Ashton saying this because he's got skin in the game, or does he genuinely feel this way and he's impartial? You could do a search and more or less land on his Crunchbase profile or whatever and see whether or not he's got money behind the company or not. But I think in a magazine, again, you could be reading this in a plane, you could be reading this somewhere with no additional sort of resources. So I think if you are writing for that medium, you should be a lot more careful with disclosure, because once that goes out, you also can't add it after the fact. Whereas on a website, if somebody starts objecting, you could add an updated blog entry post, whatever. So I think not all mediums are created equally when it comes to disclosure, sad but true.
I would even argue that when you're online, because you can quickly link to all your references, and it's that easy, you should be that much more transparent.
That's true. So let me ask you something. You advise a client. Do you tell them to basically either focus on, let's say, media and content, or do you tell them to, or technology, or do you sometimes tell like a client, no, you got to own it all. You got to own the content, the media, the tech, the software. Do you have an overriding philosophy on these things?
I generally advise clients to focus on however they make money first, and once they have that down pat, then they can branch out into other things. For example, if you're a major publication, focus on your content. That's what you do. Your content producers, outsource the technology. Preferably get something that's open source if it's available, and you trust the guys who are customizing it. But yeah, don't get bogged down in creating, reinventing the wheel. Have someone in-house who understands what's being sold to you, who understands what's being built for you, but don't get your hands into it yourself.
I will comment on this because this past week, Uyala basically landed the deal. They're a OVP, online video platform. They landed the deal with ESPN, which is a unit of Disney, and I think Disney's Steamboat Venture Fund initially invested in a lot of these tech plays, building their own platform and all that. But I think they get to a point where they realize that they're better off handing it off to someone that's just, best of breed, focuses on that so they can focus on content. But I agree with you. I think if you can make money from something, then why not sort of put in some resources? But if it's just going to be a cost unit, then I think you're biting off more than you can chew.
Yeah, it would be like WatchMojo getting into making video cameras to try to save themselves some money in 15 years down the line.
Yeah, but then why did we launch a video player? Because we're stupid. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back for the email of the week.